to the Athletes in Motion podcast, From Race to Recovery, with your hosts, Tom Riegel and Kenny Bailey.
We are live. Hey, Kenny, how are you?
I am fantastic, Tom. How are you?
I'm fantastic as well. We have Sara Milam joining us today. We're very happy to have you here. Sara is, she's based in Chattanooga, and she is a licensed mental health professional. Steadfast Living Therapy is her company. Cool. And as we joke that this show is really Kenny's therapy session.
It's my therapy session.
On all levels. 100%. We decided to really want to dive into the mental health side of it.
There you go.
And really analyze Kenny as best as we possibly can, if that's even possible. All joking aside, though, we're the mental health side of it is always important. It's something that we're very focused on, I think, as a team here, and we're very happy, Sara, to have you join us. We're going to talk about some anxiety issues and identity crises and things like that. But you're originally from Montana. You're settled here in Middle Tennessee. You've got a background in a whole lot of fun stuff. Plus, you're a triathlete. Mm-hmm. So you're one of us, one of the family. Tell us a little bit more about yourself. Bring us on. What brought you to Middle Tennessee? What's your story? What's your background?
Okay. Yeah. So I moved from Montana to Tennessee in 2021 because my husband is from Nashville. Uh-huh. And so I moved here and started working with a group mental health therapy practice based in Nashville. And then about a year after I moved, ventured out on my own and started my own private practice. So I started that in Nashville in 2023. And I specialize in working with adults, both men and women, who are kind of anxious, high stress, high achievers. So people who are generally pretty self-motivated, driven, maybe tend to be on the perfectionist kind of side of things, and who also have a lot of stress and anxiety.
Triathletes.
Yeah,
they call them triathletes.
Yeah. Exactly.
The whole genre.
I'm going, yes. Okay. Yeah.
Yep.
You have my attention
totally.
Now.
And so I love the intersection of mental health and endurance sports because I'm a therapist and I like to do endurance sports for fun. And because I think triathletes often do kind of fall into that category of being like very driven, high achieving, goal oriented, and also stressed out, anxious, perfectionistic. So,
yes.
And then we wrap our identity into that.
There you go.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. My license plate doesn't read that at all. So.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's funny.
Yeah. Even recreational triathletes, I think, really connect their identity very strongly to being
So
a
is there this is going to be a fun one for me, not for the personal thing, but just because it's an interesting topic in the fact that how would you characterize somebody that's sort of high achiever, high stress versus your average stressed person or anxiety person? Is there, do they exhibit different traits or is it the same trait, but in a different way that you speak to them, for example?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, that's a good question. So I noticed that sometimes when I'm working with somebody, they don't have a problem at all with initiating like tasks and activities. Mm-hmm. They're go-getters, right? They are doing a lot of things. They're really busy. But they also are connecting their achievements to their self-worth and to their identity. As opposed to maybe somebody who kind of is experiencing their mental health in a different way, where they have a hard time getting active, initiating activities, if that makes sense.
Yeah. So is self-worth, like, it's good to have self-worth, right? But at what point does it spill over into something that, is it because your highs and your lows are completely now tied to that self-worth, or what's the diagnosis for that? So we see this in like perfectionism lots. So okay.
Perfectionism, you can think about a perfectionist as somebody who is really attuned to the gap between the ideal and the reality, and who compulsively is trying to strive to close that gap. And perfectionism gets a bad rap. Like, I think people often are told, like, just stop being a perfectionist, just stop caring so much, right? But it's generally considered kind of a personality trait. And so it's really hard to just stop doing that, right? To just like change your personality is hard to do. And it's also pretty shaming if you're telling somebody stop being a perfectionist, but that's just kind of part of who they are. And so it can be helpful to think about perfectionism as being either like adaptive or maladaptive, kind of two different forms, depending on your mindset and what's driving it, as opposed to it being like all bad.
Yeah, I think when it gets you to stop caring, that's the problem. I think the switch of the perfectionism is that you're on or you're off, right? So you either care about it or you don't care about it. And I think finding that sweet spot of like being able to kind of maneuver through a little bit better without just turning the switch off and just not caring, and that becomes a very negative reaction to things. So
yeah, I think, Tom, what you're kind of getting at there is perfectionism can lead to burnout too, and burnout is part of burnout is that like complete disengagement or lack of interest in the sport. And so that's something that perfectionism can lead to if you're in more of that like maladaptive perfectionist mindset.
Yeah.
So how does that manifest itself in relationships with other people professionally, or relationships, with coaches? So if you're a perfectionist or you're dealing as a coach, like, Tom, has to deal with a perfectionist. How does that work, or what do you see that manifesting?
That would be maybe a great Tom question, actually, since you are a coach. I'd love to hear your perspective on that. I see it more from like the therapist side, but what do you see from the coach side?
Oh my God. It's interesting because it's a lot of, there's a couple types of athletes that are on that where they're so driven that they're either on or they fall off, right? So they either want to do it 100% right, or they don't want to do it at all. And it's almost like you've got to rein them in just a little bit, pull them off the edge, but don't pull them back into the room. They need to feel that. They need to feel that pressure. They kind of thrive off a little bit of that. It's hard to throttle them just right. It really is. And it just ends up being a lot more communication. Athletes like that, I tend to have to talk a lot more with. And that just keeps everybody on the straight and narrow.
Yeah, but we celebrate. What's funny about it is we celebrate that, right? Like Steph Curry, OCD like crazy, right? The net has to make the right sound before he stops doing 3-point shots, right? Before he's done with practice. If it doesn't, so we celebrate that. We pay him an obscene amount of money and we put him on jerseys. We celebrate those people. You look at Lionel Sanders, who turns himself inside out to the point where, he has stress fractures and those things, and he's a hero to some, right? So is there this kind of weird, to one hand, we don't like people at perfectionists, but when they succeed at perfectionism, we hold them to a high standard. Am I out of turn on that?
You're absolutely correct. I mean, sport, I think, really incentivizes perfectionism. It's celebrated, especially if you look at judged sports like gymnastics, figure skating, right? Like that's what you're aiming for. If you look at, let's say, like a sprinter, you don't really have much room for error in a 50 free, right? You mess one thing up and that could cost you the race. Fortunately, with triathlon, you have sometimes a little bit more room to like screw some stuff up here and there and be fine. You have room to recover from that. But I mean, I think it can be helpful for people to kind of reflect on what's driving their perfectionism to see if it's adaptive or maladaptive. So maladaptive perfectionists are starting from a place of not really feeling good enough, not feeling adequate. And so they're using achievement to try and help themselves feel better about themselves. And so they're really driven to achieve because they have a fear of failure. And we know at the end of the day that like, no matter how many gold stars we get or things that we achieve, if we're starting from that place of already not feeling good enough, no amount of achievement is ever going to fix that. Like we're still not going to feel good enough. Whereas people with more of an adaptive perfectionism mindset are starting from that place of already feeling good enough, and they're just excited to see like what they can achieve, what they can accomplish. They like to challenge themselves. They also recognize that failure is part of the process. They're going to make mistakes, and that's okay. And so they don't connect their self-worth to their success or their failure, but they're still striving to achieve. So that's really where kind of the difference lies. Like, are you connecting your self-worth to the outcome of what you're doing or not?
And that would be like a healthy version. So there is you can be a perfectionist and be healthy and
I get it. Yeah.
And be, because I think Kobe Bryant had used to say that any new thing he would immediately implement into his game, even if it failed and it looked terrible or didn't work or whatever, because he tried it because he wanted to be on that edge over there. He was comfortable with it not working and having a bad night based on the fact that he was trying something new and constantly pushing himself on that sense. And I think from what you're saying, it's like, yes, you can be a perfectionist to be at the top end of your sport, but also have healthy relationships with people and everything else, and kind of be just that, knowing that you want to do that work. It's where it comes from. What's driving that, I think, is where we go to the fear and anger and self-worth part of it is the key of making that go away.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And I think one thing we need to be careful of too is to also not kind of internalize the achievements too much either, because you can't just unhook your self-worth from the failures and from the mistakes. You kind of have to unhook it from all of it. In order to really kind of disconnect your self-worth from the outcome.
Do you find age group athletes, I don't know who your clientele is, so maybe but I would like, just in general, age group athletes, when they look at the professionals and they look at those times, especially in triathlon, like, these guys are crushing these times, or somebody that should be similar to me, is crushing the times. How come I'm not doing that? Is that one of a byproduct of seeing, a non-perfectionist looking at a perfectionist that way?
I think, with age group athletes, with recreational athletes who, this isn't their job, I think that one of the challenges is you have to be able to balance those other areas of your life really well. And you have those other obligations like work and family and those kinds of things. And so you're going to bump up against perfectionism a lot if you're a recreational triathlete, because you're not realistically going to be able to perfectly adhere to your training plan. If you, things are going to come up in life and you're going to have to make adjustments. And so I think for like age groupers and recreational athletes, it can be particularly hard because they're just realistically, you're not really going to be able to execute it perfectly.
When I'm coaching an athlete that's doing their first Ironman distance race, or even they've done a couple, I end up having these long conversations with them about how they can adapt their training so that they're just not so focused on their training. It was just like, you want to spend some time with your family. You need to. I actually coach them to spend some time with their family. I set up some walks and some things, and they're like trying to figure out how they do it. I said, well, get your ride in the morning. I said, and then you still feel good, then go for a ride with your wife or your significant other afterwards. And they're just kind of like, oh, I can do that? I'm like, yeah, and then you can go at their pace and enjoy some time with them. It was just kind of like, you need to maneuver through that. And I actually joke when I talk to a potential new athlete and they say they want to do an Ironman, I ask them 2 questions. Did you lose a bet? That's the first thing I ask them. And the second thing I tell them more is like, getting therapy is way cheaper. So if you're using this as therapy, go see a certified therapist, because that's way cheaper than what you're about to put yourself through, plus the stress on your relationships. And the fact that is you need to, like, the first one is so overwhelming that you're so driven on it that you're like this, you're zoned in, that you don't see the effect it's having on your friends, your family, and your loved ones. And like, it's basically trying to put onto their plan things of like, hey, spend time with your family. This is a weekend with your family. So
is that when you speak to someone, is that the trigger? Like if they're starting to prioritize, like, I got to get this done over family or over work or other things, that's when you're like, hey, you need some help. versus, that healthy balance. So where's that tripping point at that you go, okay, maybe we just need to sit down and have a chat? What does that look like?
Yeah, it's when the anxiety level hits max 10, where the workouts are struggling. And then the conversation I'm having with the athlete where they're off on this. And I could tell, the thing I try to modulate is if the life stress goes up, then the training stress needs to come down. So I make sure that I'm getting feedback on the workouts saying how things good, how you felt, whatever. And I'm watching that and the conversations I'm having. And then it's when you know what, we're going to back you off this week. We're going to give you much, much more relaxed training. We're going to take this thing down, way down so that it's all here. And then I will tell them you need to spend some time with your family. You need to chill out. You need to relax. You need to, kind of bring it back. And I don't, because we have lots of conversations through the process, I really never get to that point where somebody's about to pop. And go to that point. But I can start to see where it is. They're like, I've got some family stuff. It's like, good. You got family stuff? Great. Let's just wipe the slate clean. The weekend is free. Do whatever. Just do an activity, do something with the family, do whatever. The training will pick up on Tuesday when you're back in town. Don't worry about it. Yeah.
But I think, for me, and my wife's the same way, right? If you put something on a piece of paper and I don't do it, then I failed, right? If you're hey, if it calls for 3,500 swim that day and I do a really solid 2 and that's all I have time for and I don't do 35, then I failed. It's a fail, right? Yeah. That's it.
Yeah, that all or nothing thought pattern is really common.
Hypothetically, I'm just saying hypothetically. If someone should say that,
listen, Kenny, I'm the same way.
Right, and sometimes
one of the reasons I like to talk about perfectionism, focus on it, is I can relate personally. So
the other thing is or you're just there's no way I'm going to achieve it, so I'm not even going to do it. Right, I'm just that's so beyond 65 miles today, not going to happen. So not I got a solid 30 in and at least I got something. It's well, if I can't do the 65, I'm not doing it at all. And, Tom's smiling because that's exactly the way I do it, which is I look at him yep, not going to do that. So that's not going to happen today. Yeah. And then he's like, well, did you do some of it? I'm like, well, no, because I'm not, I'm already failing before I start. And that's a difficult thing to get past, right? Is that fear of I'm already not going to live up to the expectation. So, why am I putting myself through that training day? I'm going to go live to fight another day, right? And I don't know. It's a weird sort of nonsensical thing, right? Because well, at least something's better than nothing. But if I can't hit the number, then why am I here? So
and so when you find yourself in that mindset, it can be helpful to think about your values. And what I mean by that is kind of your why. Why am I even participating in triathlon? What's the point of this? And for those of us who are not professional, it's a good thing to really reflect on and figure out. And if it's beyond just trying to execute your training plan perfectly or trying to PR, why else are you doing it? And sometimes that connecting to that can help you get through those moments where you're in that all or nothing thought pattern, and it can help you find that gray area.
Well,
I think makes me feel good. Because that's when I'm interviewing a potential athlete to coach, I need to know what their why is. If they don't have a why, I'll have them go think about it and come back, because I don't think I want to work with an athlete that doesn't have a why that's significant that will help them get through a lot of this, especially the longer distance races. So you don't necessarily need a why for a sprint, but it helps getting through the training.
I'm going to piss both of you off, right? I feel like that's overly, I think that's overly simplistic to a certain extent. Right?
It is.
And I'm going to be contrarian on this one. I have a why, but it's still the day-to-day stuff, your long-term why. I want to do this because this is what I want to do and I want to do that, right? Sometimes the why gets in the way because I want to PR this one, right? That's my why. I've done this course before. I know I can do this course. I know I can nail it this time. And so now I'm going to go nail it, right? And so the why is there. But then you're frustrated because you're not doing the progression you need to hit, or you're frustrated because. So I'm not saying that there shouldn't be a why. That's not what I'm suggesting. But I think just saying, well, what's your why in the middle of 92 degrees when it's 45 miles left to go on your ride, sometimes doesn't cut it, right? It's the I just got to get through the damn thing, and then or live to fight another day kind of stuff. But I'm still at least personally, I'm pretty frustrated when I get home. It's well, crap, I was supposed to do 45 today. I can't get it done. It's either too hot or too crazy, or I got a flat tire or whatever else. And then I'm pissed for the rest of the day, right? It's like, great, failed that one. Now, how am I going to go make up for that? How am I going to go, and then, how was your ride? And it's like, it sucks, and then I got to spend an hour brooding, and she pulls the dogs away so they don't get kicked. I'm not that bad, but
everyone leaves the house.
Yeah, exactly. We're going to give you some you time now. So think about. So
you mentioned your why is like a PR, right? Like that's very outcome focused, which is good to have some of those too. But you also want to have like more of a process kind of focus.
What she said,
right? Yeah.
What she said.
Yeah. I don't care how I get it. I just got to get the PR. So, like hell or high water.
So to Sarah's point, and
that's a good point.
What I usually say is that there's superficial, not to belay the why, the superficial whys and deeper meaning whys. The deeper the meaning of that why to you, like, is it in memory of a loved one that you lost? Is it, there's a bunch of different reasons that are more deeper soul, that touch your soul more. You need a deeper why than just hitting a PR. I think that's a great, that's what I'd like to do. Like your objectives for the race are to finish, hit a PR, go faster on this, go on that. I don't see that as a why. Hitting a PR is not a why.
Yeah, it feels like
for me, a why is that, and everybody's different on this, but the longer the distance, the deeper the why. Like, I'm going to honor the memory of my grandfather who struggled with whatever disease and blah, 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 coming through. That's a deep why. That's something you can pull on to go through those days that kind of get there, that you struggle with. I would have a hard time with just something that was like, even sometimes just finishing the race is like, that's not enough of a why. Who cares? Yeah. I could get pancakes right now. I don't need to do this.
Kind of making that differentiation between goals and like values, right? Like a PR, that's like a goal. You accomplish it, you hit it, you're done. A value is like something that you can align with, whether the outcome goes in your favor or not. So like if you, for example, value like adventure, you can do that race and it's going to be an adventure, whether you hit your goal of PRing or not. Like it can still align with that value. So having some of both can be helpful, both like the goals and then also being aware of like the values that can guide you no matter what the outcome is. Do you think, you guys talked earlier about burnout, right? I think at the top of the show, we talked about that. Mm-hmm. Do you think that is the thing that sort of leads to burnout? Is that if your why is always a PR, or it's always something where it's not more of a deeper, like I'm enjoying the process and I'm just glad I'm out here, that kind of thing. Is that kind of one of the causes of burnout? Is, I just
certainly can help. I mean, it certainly is one of the pieces that sits there that will build to burnout. I don't know if that's your total burnout, but like Sara, like that's a pile of things. Usually burnout is multiple things, right? It's they finally get to too much and then it's like, I just can't handle this anymore. I think I try to talk people out of what failure is. We try to have conversations of what does failure look like to you in a race? If we're coming up to a race, what does failure look like? And I'm more in the stoicism side of like addressing your feelings and just being present in the day. And failure to me is if you just don't learn anything from what you did. If I go to a race and I DNF the race, I didn't finish it, but I learned something. I try to pull those pieces out and then go back and make the attempt again, because that to me is part of the journey. And that experimentation to see if I can get better to prove something is usually what keeps me kind of moving along. And then if I fail, I don't know what failure is, because it's not tied to my paycheck. It's not tied to a living. It's just like I got hurt or injured or I didn't eat right. And like, wow, that wasn't my best performance, but okay, I live to fight another day. Let's go back and do that again. And I usually look to try to improve something to go back and do it better, and then come out and go, well, that was about as good as I could do today, right now.
Well, I'm kind of reflecting when you show up to like these races, right? And you see people that have been there for 15 and 20 years. And on the surface, you think, oh, well, they're not nervous because, they've seen their share of mistakes. Where back to your guys' point, it could just be that they're pretty comfortable in their why, right? And like the reason why they've been there for 15, 20 years, because they didn't tie the objective of winning or finishing as the outcome wasn't their only why, right? I mean, they're there having a good time. They seem to be super chill. They're waving at people. I'm about to start a race. Like I already peed. Do I need to pee again? I'm doing, checkpoints on, is the wetsuit on right? Did I do this right? Okay. Remember this, remember that. And these guys, it seems super casual. You look around, they're like, oh yeah, let's go for a swim. And I'm just like, how are you not, but it could just mean that that they've accepted the process as their, we enjoy the process of triathlon, not I enjoy, where I'm at on the leaderboard.
Yeah.
Crazy people.
You want to crush some people. You want to go out and beat, some other people. I mean, I like racing some of the guys, especially the sprints, my age group, Jeff Alsop and some of the others where we're trying to beat each other, right? We're old guys, just we're barely moving and we're getting out there and we're just going after it, having some fun, good natured ribbing and everything like that. And if he beats me this time, it's like, he got me. I'm going to go back and get him next time, and it's just, it doesn't matter either way.
Yeah, but and I guess my point is, you look at these people and go, why are they so calm? Like, when am I going to get there? Right? And you think, oh, well, they've done enough of these where they, they're ready for, whatever's getting thrown at them and they're super chill because, it's experience. It's not necessarily experience of the race itself. It's the experience of knowing that, like, hey, if I have a good day, I have a good day. If I don't have a good day, I'm still, tomorrow's still going to go there. We still got to go to work.
We go have brunch and
exactly
some coffee and
it's either
go off and do it again.
Pancakes early or cold pizza at night. Either way, I'm getting food. Right?
Either way, we're doing it. Yeah.
Sorry, I had an epiphany just now. That was fun. So
we made progress with Kenny today.
Not yet.
This is
no. There's a lot here.
So Sara, you're a high achieving athlete as well. You went through. We mentioned briefly in our emails that about your race that didn't happen. Tell us that story, because this is, I mean, we all relate to this. So this is a good story, I think. Well, I don't know. I don't know the story, so I'm assuming it's a good story for us.
Yeah, it relates to a lot of things we talked about. So I'll lead into a little bit. So I did the Chattanooga 70.3 in 2023. That's the first and only 70.3 I've done. It was a great experience. I really enjoyed the race. But the training for it was, when you were talking earlier, talking about like the kind of the blinders you get when you're really nervous about something, that's where I was at. Like for my whole training plan that I was following, I was very motivated by the anxiety. Especially the bike portion. I love swimming and running, that's fine, but the bike always freaks me out. So I was like, I've never even biked 56 miles before. Like, I don't know if I can do this. If I get a flat, am I going to make the cutoff? Like, those were kind of the thoughts going through my head. So I was like very zoned into trying to align to my training plan as much as possible. And while the race itself was super fun, the training experience, I was so grumpy the whole 5 months I was training for that. My husband can attest to that. I was grumpy. I was like, at the same time as I was training for this, I was working full time and I was also doing the stuff to get my private practice up and running on the side. So I just
you were starting a small business on top of wow,
too much all at once. And like we had to sacrifice a decent amount just to make the training possible, right? Because a lot of if you're working full time, you do your long workouts on the weekends. That's the time when, we'd like to go camping or do little weekend trips and those kinds of things. So it wasn't just the training was affecting me. It was also affecting like my husband too, because he's also like sacrificing that time that we could be doing other things with. Anyway, so I wasn't planning on doing the 70.3 again this year until one of my friends, my old like training partner, texted me. She's like, I signed up and I got FOMO. So then I signed up.
Yes.
And that wasn't a strong enough why. So as it got closer, in a nutshell, I started to realize that there were going to be a lot of hurdles I was going to have to overcome to make it happen this year. And I did not have the motivation or like the interest or the desire to really overcome those. So like I've had this chronic knee pain for on and off for like 6 years. In the past year and a half, like I haven't been able to run more than 3 miles consistently without it cropping up. And I think if I got a coach and I did some PT, it'd probably be like doable. But I thought, well, that's like, you know, another time investment, financial investment. And I just moved to Chattanooga in November. So I didn't know where to train, who to train with. So that was kind of another hurdle to just figure out, like, where do I even ride? I have no idea. And I just was like really noticing this pull to kind of just invest in some other areas of my life too, outside of triathlon. So, I ultimately decided to drop out, and I've shifted my goals for this summer. And my goals now are just to kind of invest in these other areas. So my husband and I are taking several trips this summer. I'm volunteering at the Humane Society.
Cool.
My goal, like triathlon wise, is just to meet some people to train with and find places to train here in Chattanooga. And
picked a good city, so.
Yeah.
I joined one of the best in the United States, right? Yeah.
So
nice.
I think it'll be good. I've started texting with a few girls who I think are about the same speed, that we can plan some rides together. So I'm just kind of focusing on that, and then we'll probably do a sprint, either Music City or Chattanooga Waterfront, because sprints are really fun and not stressful at all. And with all this transition,
you can go do brunch, right?
Yeah, exactly.
And you're done at 10. Brunch. You go have brunch. You
totally.
Yeah,
exactly. Yeah. And like with this kind of transition period of like moving to Chattanooga, buying our first house, moving my business down here, like I want triathlon right now to be like a fun thing, like an outlet, not a stressful, challenging thing. Because there's already enough other challenging things I've got going on right now. So, I just realized like at this point, I want it to just be fun, easy outlet. Now I'm sure like down the road in a few years that'll switch again, and I'll want like the challenge and to go for something really difficult and outside my comfort zone. But right now I'm good. Just like, you know, training.
Perfect example. Perfect example of life stress being up here and training stress needs to be down here. Body doesn't know the difference between the two stresses. So you're in a whole new environment. You're there. So did you like have this epiphany, like one day you just went, screw it, I'm not doing it, right? Or did you walk through and kind of use yourself as a client and go, okay, what would did you go through a worksheet? How did you come to that decision? I mean, what would we do in the same mode? What are some what's the thought process?
Yeah. It was kind of interesting because I was taking a sports psychology class on the side this semester, and I was kind of like applying everything I was learning to myself through
Perfect
decision-making process.
You're like, you know what? Don't want to do this.
Yeah.
You were supposed to help to do this, and then you found out, like, you know what? I don't want to do but
I don't want to do it.
I need to work on, adjusting my athletic identity. That was a topic we talked about. But I totally just forgot your question, Tom. Can you ask?
What was the process that you went through to come to that conclusion, to that decision?
Yeah, so it really.
Or did your husband tell you? I'm out of here.
It was really like the knee pain that was the first thing that kind of clued me in. So. I had been like gradually just trying to build up my running a little bit, my running volume to get to like where the training plan says you should be at the beginning. And it was so frustrating because I would get up to like 4 to 6 miles and then be okay for like a week, and then it would hurt again, and then I'd have to go back down. And I just got to this point where, and I felt like I was being really careful about it. I had restarted like the home PT exercises I'd gotten before, and it just wasn't working. And I was just so frustrated and like not having any fun with it at all. And so I got to this point where I was like, well, I'm either going to have to decide to invest a lot of time and energy in trying to like probably go to PT, go to a doctor, figure this out. Or I can just pivot and change my goals and stop feeling like I'm just running into this brick wall. And so I chose the latter. Yeah. So
well, what's kind of fun is, because I remember back, to your point, the why is like, do I want to do an Ironman again? I did Ironman Arizona. I tried to fake a training program one year thinking I don't have to do a whole lot, show up to Arizona, find out you actually do. You can't fake an Ironman. Newsflash.
Newsflash.
So I was like, I wasn't going to do an Ironman, but then, I spent 20 years in Sacramento, and then all of a sudden they just announced Ironman Sacramento, and I got the buzz back, right? I got the juice back. Like, imagine being able to go back to my hometown. So I guess my point is like, right now, there may not be that trigger thing, right? Where you're just going to go have fun, but it doesn't mean 2 years from now, something pops up where like, oh, that's fun. Like that'll be, so that's what's nice about it. It's, you have 78-year-olds that are still, doing Ironman. So you don't need, or any triathlon, right? You don't, age doesn't have a limit on this thing. If it takes a couple of years to get the mojo back, give it a couple of years.
Yeah.
So,
it should come and go.
And I had a
and
fun
there's
time
tons of other.
Yeah.
There's a ton of other endurance sports you can do. Just be active. Like really, that's what we talk about. What's an athlete? Everyone's an athlete. Just be active and do that. If you're a triathlete, you talk to people who are like, well, I triathlon, but I don't do those anymore. Like you're still a triathlete, right? You've checked the boxes. You did the race. It doesn't matter the distance. You'll come back to it.
And I got the tattoo, so it's not going away.
And
it's permanent now.
So what do you think about athletes that get tattoos of theirs? Is that obsessive? Is that a bad sign? I was going to put it right here in my neck, but I just thought it'd be a bit much. Is that a trigger? Is that okay?
That's definitely an identity thing, right? Right?
Yeah.
Wouldn't you say, Sarah?
Yeah, I could see that. Yeah.
If you're going to brand yourself, you're going to definitely brand yourself.
It's an interesting, it's an interesting dilemma, because I think Sarah, I'm kind of halfway there with what you're doing right now, because I've got 70.3 Louisville and I'm having a hard time, cranking it. But I identify myself as an athlete, as a triathlete, right? I mean, I literally do have it says, swim, bike, run on my license plate, right? I have the Ironman, sticker on my car, right? I have a tattoo, for God's sakes. So, how do you manage people that are trying to figure out how to go through that transition of identity? Like, how do you uncouple that, I guess would be the question.
So athletic identity is really interesting because it's often considered a double-edged sword. So if you have a really strong, salient athlete identity, you're likely to be more engaged in your training. So you're probably going to perform better. It can be helpful for just you're building your sense of self. But on the flip side, if something goes wrong, like you have an injury, you retire, you have to take a season off, then you're likely going to have a much harder time coping with it than someone who has more of a complex identity where they're feeling like they place equal value into multiple life areas and not just into the athlete identity part. So I think a big part of it is just taking some time to each person just kind of taking some time to reflect and think about how much value am I placing in my identity as an athlete? How is that working for me right now? How might it work for me in the future? And is that something that I want to continue to do? Or do I want to, start investing in some of these other life areas too, as a protective factor, so that if something, not really if, but when something goes wrong or when I can't engage in my sport because other life stuff is coming up and I don't have time or don't have the money to do it, that's going to protect me if I have kind of more complexity to my identity. So I think it's really just about awareness. So you can kind of make a conscious choice as far as how much you want to keep investing in that or not. I think a lot of people don't really think about it consciously and just kind of on autopilot align with their athlete identity. And then they get hit pretty hard when something happens.
I see a lot of people tie themselves in that way. They get into a group, whether it's a run group, So they're runners, cyclists, they're cyclists, triathletes, they don't know what they are. You've got endurance runners, you've got trail runners and road runners. They're all different, right? They're all in this thing. And you can extrapolate this out to, political groups and churches and everything else in your life. Like we jump into this identity and we hold on to that, that piece. I find it really interesting because most of them don't work across. Like the road runners can't fathom running on a trail, and even there's memes and things on social media. It was just kind of like we've lost him. He's a cyclist now, and the runner's trying to wave his friend down. He's like, "No, did you see the look in his eyes? He's out. He's gone." And what is the road person that finds the trail for the first time and they head off into the woods and you never see him again type of. And it's just really funny to see how everyone gets in their little cliques and groups and. I don't think they're aware of it. I think they tie to something they like and they just hold on to that. I find that very fascinating because I get bored so easily. I like to do everything. And I think
there's a sense of community in it though, right? And I think that's what people gravitate towards.
Huge.
Matter of fact, my wife, and I don't think I'm speaking out of turn, like we belong to like the Fleet Feet Roadrunners in Sacramento. We'd show up 3 days a week minimum. Right. And our friends are tied to that. We're still friends for people from there. And when we left and moved to Tennessee, the hardest thing we had was we had a social group of people that was tied to our physicality, I guess. Right. Because we were a run group. Right. And trying to mimic that was difficult. And our socialism on our social go out and try to talk to folks. The run groups here weren't filling the bill, right? And I think there was and then you had COVID to the mix, which didn't help. But the whole point was just, our social structure was wrapped around it, right? And you talked about running, and you're excited for your friends, and they're doing travel running. And they come back and talk about the Disney, the Dopey Challenge, and that sounds fun, right? You get 8 medals. How fun is that, right? And
more is better.
But we'd have dinner with them, and we would and you have a common bond, and I think that common bond's a really tough thing to Tom's just an aloof creature, right? He floats between groups, but I think there's some groups that like you feel like a sense of home in that community. And that's a difficult thing if you're no longer identifying yourself as that. It's not just as an individual. You're saying my social group now is are they still going to like me because I'm not a triathlete? No. Right?
Are you aware? Are you aware of that you're in that little group?
Yeah.
Like, I mean, I'm not looking at it as a bad thing. It's just when we talk about, Sarah, as you point out, your self-awareness on stuff like that and being able to adapt to not do a race and focus on other things in your life. Are you aware that you're so pulled into a group or not? And what's the process for someone who's not? Like, to figure that out, is that an epiphany where they just go like, this is all I have? And it's not a bad thing. I mean, if that's what works for you, great. I mean, if you're happy and that, fantastic. I mean, I'm not digging that at all. I mean, it's just it's just interesting to see self-awareness is something that how would you talk to someone, Sarah, and get them to be more self-aware? They come and talk to you, and they sit down and they have all these problems, and they expect you to solve them. What do you do to go like, look in the mirror?
Like psychoeducation, I think, is just really important because, I think most of us aren't just sitting around thinking about our identity, right? It's just we just kind of align ourselves to these different things. We prioritize different aspects of our life, and we don't really consciously take a look at it and see where am I spending my time? What am I prioritizing? And so I often talk with people about values quite a lot. And we'll even pull up a values list and be like, let's kind of narrow this down right now. What are the 3 things that are most important to you? And then asking them, is what you're doing right now in your day-to-day life aligned with that or not? Do you want to shift anything? And the values that you want to prioritize are going to change at different points in your life too. And so I think also accepting that, giving yourself permission to pivot, taking a season off where you're focusing on something else doesn't mean that you're quitting or that you're giving up or failing. It's just you're choosing intentionally to pivot and to focus on something else. And so I think framing it as a choice is helpful. it's not my job to tell somebody, you should or you shouldn't identify this strongly with sport or with your job. But I think it is my job to ask questions and educate people to prompt them to think about their identity more consciously so that they can make a choice. They kind of know the risks and benefits, and then they can make a choice that works for them. Nice. Having that like singular athlete identity, or, if you're really identified with your job, for example, it's simpler. It's a lot easier because, it's a way easier to perform well if you're only focusing on one thing than if you're also saying.
So much easier.
Yeah. I mean, when I was
would love that.
in my early 20s and all I had to do was like go to work and then I could just like train for a half marathon, it's really easy because no one else is affected by it. You can be kind of laser focused, but so it's harder to have kind of more of a complex identity where you're investing in other things. But
okay, so the key message is divorce your husbands or wives. Focus on what you need. I'm getting. That's what I'm getting, right? Right? Just remove everything else, and you're going to be fine.
Got
it.
Singularly.
Wow, this is. You know what? This has been good, honey.
Yeah. Yeah, until you
I got it.
yourself.
I'm getting a 1-bedroom apartment with a beanbag chair, and I'm going to do nothing but go to work and train.
That's it. That's what the pros
Sarah,
are.
thank you. This has been a great episode. I appreciate it.
We'll make sure
not the key message we're trying to get from this.
Not really.
Okay.
Yeah.
She may want to skip this episode. Sorry, I may have taken the wrong answer to that one.
That was a pivot.
That was a pivot. Okay. Wrong message. Got it. Okay. Yeah. That's funny.
Yeah. It's fascinating that way, but I mean I remember going through that first Ironman training and being so like I was working 60 hours a week. I was traveling and then I was training for races. So, but I was very aware that I wasn't very aware in the very beginning for the first Ironman distance of how so siloed I was about it. But after that, as I tried to do more and other things, then I was very aware of it to the point where it was like I would get up, I would do my training, I would knock it out at 3:30, 4 o'clock in the morning. I would get my training out at work, whatever. And I would get up super early on the weekends to get my long rides and runs and things in. And I would come back and I would eat. And then it was like whatever my wife wanted to do, whatever Wendy wanted to do, we would go wherever, movies, shopping, see friends. We had to do all of that. The only thing she had to do was just keep feeding me. And as long as I had food coming on a regular basis, she had her purse was full of food. And she was just, as soon as I would start to get slightly irritated, it was like, here's your food, here's your food, here's your food. And we'd go like, what are we doing now? Well, it's been 3 hours. We need to stop and get some food. And then we would just make a pivot over to a restaurant so I could scarf some food down and then we'd move on again. And we talk about it now and she was just kind of like watching me burn the candle at both ends. She said was not fun to watch. But she did appreciate the fact that I went out of my way to go like, it's whatever we need to do because we need to do stuff together. Even if I'm like, like blurry eyed and staring like I don't know where I'm, I can barely function, but we're going to get it done and, kind of go through that. So there was a lot of highs and lows along that way. Wasn't self-aware in the beginning, became self-aware and still didn't stop it. And then finally just put an end to it. And figured out another way around.
There you go.
But you have to have that. You have to have that supportive partner. You have to. There's no other way that you can kind of do it. I just don't see how people do it by themselves. And I've had friends I've known people that have had unsupportive partners. And I don't know how they do it because the stress level goes up even higher. Yeah. Because now you're getting like anger at you and resentment. And that's the worst. So
definitely. My husband was wonderful when I did the 70.3 before. I had a hard time linking up with my training partner for the rides, and I don't like to ride by myself because it just doesn't feel that safe. And he would like drive behind me on the Natchez Trace Parkway while I'm riding my bike for like 3 hours. And going up the hills, he'd like open the sunroof and like blast some music and like climbing the hills. And I
get none of this.
He was awesome. It was awesome. And then during the race, he was there really supportive. And that's another reason too why I think like not doing it this year is a good choice, because like he sacrificed a lot to support me and allow me to do that and make it possible. And you gotta have some balance there, because if you're always asking like your spouse to like give up what they want to do in order to support it, that's not going to end well. And so it's nice this year to be able to just like focus on other things and do some traveling, hopefully some camping and stuff like that. So it's not always like me prioritizing my hobby and him having to sacrifice to support that. So
yeah. And I think that's great that you made that decision, because that's a decision that needs to be made sometime. And that's not a failure, backing out of it. It's making an honest, sadly, adult decision. This adulting thing sucks. It's just, but that's I think something that people need to be okay with, right? Looking at stuff that way and going like, okay, we're not going to do it. And it's cool. There's no bad decision. I think we had some athletes on that we talked to, and the same thing where they came up and they had to make this decision and they were kind of upset about it. It was like, no, it's not. You made the right decision, right? Yeah. You have to put family first. You always have to put family first.
Or health first, right? Like you don't just power through, like, you know, if you need the surgery, get the surgery, right? The race is going to be there next year. It's still going to be there. So it's not going away.
We had that conversation with Brandon, who pushed through three broken spokes in his front wheel, and the wheel was dragging, and he pushed through and he blew himself up on the bike because it was like dragging the brakes the whole time, and it was on the front wheel. And we had him on the podcast because we were following his year. And I had this conversation with him sitting on the curb after the race was over. I was like, that was really stupid. Okay, let's just put it that way, because I didn't want my kids to see that I quit. I didn't want anything. And anyone who knows Brandon knows that Brandon does not quit. Brandon is definitely not a quitter. For those of you who don't know Brandon, you should go back and check a couple of the episodes that we've had him on. His story is fantastic, right? Yeah. But in the same sense, we had to go, Brandon, that was stupid, because your front wheel of all things is going to collapse on you and cause you to face plant. And that could be death. That's so much worse than anything else. And it's not you quitting. You had a mechanical issue. Yeah. Yes, you pushed through it. Yes, you finished the race, but ultimately that was a poor decision.
So we're going to give him.
I think he knows that now.
We're going to give him your card, Sarah, and contacting you.
We've got a whole host of people that we're going to refer to you. You're going to be so busy.
There you go. So speaking of which, what type of when. Like, in all honesty, like when we talk to people, what should be those things? Like, how do we introduce you? Like, what would you recommend from us? Like, hey, man, it sounds like you may want to go talk to somebody,
when do we come talk to Sara?
Yeah. When would be a good time for us to, like, if we identify somebody, or, there's somebody that's willing to listen and say, hey, maybe a good idea to have a conversation. What would that look like?
Yeah. Yeah. I think, if we circle back to perfectionism, for example, if you're working with someone and you notice that they are often in that maladaptive perfectionist mindset, and they're starting from that place of not feeling good enough, not feeling worthy, usually that's a deeper rooted issue that might have started in, childhood experiences or other previous, probably non-triathlon related experiences. Something like that is an indication that they could benefit from therapy. To work on shifting that core belief. Someone who has a lot of pretty high levels of anxiety and has difficulty managing that, and could benefit from some strategies for managing the anxiety. That could be someone who would benefit from therapy too. And sometimes anxiety is also kind of deeply rooted in previous experiences too. And there are things that we can do in therapy to help with that. So, for example, I'm EMDR certified. Are you guys familiar with EMDR? No. Stands for eye movement desensitization and reprocessing. So it's a type of therapy that is used a lot for PTSD, anxiety. It can work wonders. It does a really good job of shifting not only how people are thinking and their core beliefs, but also can help desensitize previous traumatic experiences. And so people don't get like the physiological activation and anxiety anymore. So for example, if you have somebody who is like highly anxious, or they have those negative core beliefs about themselves, that's something that could potentially, depending on the situation, be helpful for them in shifting that, reducing their anxiety. And then from there, often just building like skills that you can use, that they can use in like present and future life as well. Therapy is not all about like unearthing past stuff. Yeah. It's also skill building for the present and future. But yeah.
Thanks, Mom and Dad.
Yeah. Yeah. So I guess in a nutshell, I would say if you come across somebody who seems to have those kind of deeply rooted negative beliefs about themselves, or seems to have anxiety that is pretty persistent and is starting to be limiting, that can be a good time to refer to a therapist.
I think that's great.
Yeah. And I'm starting to think, and maybe this is, been obvious to everybody else, but it almost seems to me like therapy is good for just about everybody. That to some people, you just need a little less. It's good to have that. I think that builds that self-awareness that we've talked about, right? Is being able to have someone ask the questions to get you to think about and process to set the right way. Because I think a lot of us will sit here and was like, well, I don't know how to be self-aware. I don't know what to ask myself. I don't know what to be thinking about. And the fact that you can sit down with someone and have them ask some questions that aren't like, tell me about your childhood, tell me about, it's not that stereotypical type thing that we think about therapy. It's about processing, about thinking about where you're at. And I really like the idea of talking about values. Maybe we can do a whole episode just talking about values and how to define values. That might be something fun that we do, because I know we could spend a lot of time on that. And I think trying to get people to understand what values are would be huge. Yeah.
Timely.
And timely.
I'll just say that.
Because we just, not to go off on anything else. We need to think about our values.
Exactly.
And we think about that.
That
would be
absolutely.
That would be fun to do.
It's not always just diving into the past and focusing on the negative. It's also thinking about like what's going to drive me forward, what's going to optimize my functioning right now and in the future too.
Yeah, and how do we appreciate where we're at today, right here, right now? So, wow, awesome, Sara. Thank you so much.
Yeah,
this was fun having you on. This has been fantastic. We want to thank everybody for listening. Give us 5 stars, thumbs up, all that thing. Share it with your neighbors and anyone else that you think might benefit from this. That helps us, gets the algorithm out there. Everyone, and keep comments and things coming. If you've got questions, send us the questions. Let us know. I know I've been really terrible about responding to people on Instagram and that. I'm sorry. I try occasionally. I see. Yep. Some stuff. Sorry, I have to fire our social media manager, amongst everything else. So, but we appreciate everybody listening, and certainly send us your questions and all that stuff. And Sara, thank you so much for joining us. It's great. I think we need to get more people aware on the mental health side of things and really focus on that. I think that's going to be a big push for us this year as well. Cool. Thank you, Kenny, as well.
Yeah.
And for everyone, we'll catch you on the next one.